The courtroom air was thick with a silence that felt like a physical weight, pressing down on everyone present. My soon-to-be ex-husband, David, sat across the aisle, his lawyer already detailing a list of fabricated claims about my instability. I clutched the edge of the wooden bench, my knuckles white, feeling my entire world my home, my security, my daughter slipping through my fingers. This was not the man I had married 2 decades ago. This was a stranger intent on dismantling our life together. My gaze stayed fixed on my 16-year-old daughter, Lily, who sat quietly, her face an unreadable mask. Her presence was my only anchor in the storm of legal venom and false accusations, a storm I feared would sweep me away entirely. I barely heard the judge's calm, authoritative voice as she called for any final statements or evidence. My lawyer had prepared me for this moment, but our case felt flimsy against David's financial power and ruthless legal team. Just as I was about to surrender to despair, Lily stood up. Her chair scraped softly against the polished floor, a sound that echoed in the tense room. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I have something to show." She held up a small USB drive, her eyes meeting mine for a fleeting second, filled with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. A murmur rippled through the courtroom as she walked to the AV console. David's lawyer immediately objected, arguing this was an unverified exhibit, but the judge, with a curious glance at Lily, overruled him. My heart hammered against my ribs as Lily plugged in the drive. The large screen at the front of the courtroom flickered to life. The first image was a shaky, home video shot of our living room from years ago. On my 40th birthday, I was laughing, surrounded by friends, with a youthful, beaming David by my side. The sight of that happy memory was a physical ache, a stark contrast to the cold estrangement between us now in this sterile room. The video then cut to a more recent scene, taken just a few months prior from a hidden angle. It showed David, his voice cold and dismissive, telling me that my dream of opening a small art studio was a frivolous waste of money. He belittled my paintings, calling them a hobby, not a career. The camera then panned to my face, capturing the exact moment my hope and passion deflated, replaced by a quiet, profound sadness. In the courtroom, I felt the eyes of the spectators on me, their previous judgment shifting into something closer to sympathy. Scene after scene played out, a secret diary of our life that Lily had compiled. There was footage of me staying up all night to nurse Lily through a bad flu, while David was away on a business trip we later discovered was a golfing weekend. There was a clip of me carefully budgeting at the kitchen table, stressing over bills, while David made a show of complaining about the cost of groceries. Each video was a quiet, devastating revelation of the invisible labor and emotional burden I had carried alone for years, the very foundation of the unstable environment he claimed I created. The climax of the video was a recording from our kitchen, just 2 weeks before the hearing. David was yelling, his face contorted with an anger I had become all too familiar with. He wasn't yelling at me, but at Lily, for getting a B+ on a calculus test, telling her she was throwing away her future and his money. The camera, likely her phone in her pocket, captured my voice, steady and strong, as I stepped between them. "You will not speak to her that way," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "Her worth is not defined by your expectations." In that moment, the video showed not an unstable woman, but a protective lioness. As the screen went dark, the silence in the courtroom was absolute, profound, and heavy with shared understanding. The judge removed her glasses, pinching the bridge of her nose as if to ward off a headache. I looked at David. The arrogant, confident facade he had worn all morning had completely crumbled, leaving behind a pale, shocked man who could not meet anyone's gaze. He had been exposed not as a wronged husband, but as a manipulative and emotionally abusive partner, and the entire room had borne witness. Lily walked back to her seat, her shoulders straight, and finally looked at me, her eyes now filled with tears. In that moment, I understood. Her quietness over the past few months hadn't been detachment. It had been a mission. She had been gathering evidence, not for a court case, but for the truth. She had seen the real man behind the mask her father wore in public, and she had chosen to protect me, to fight for me, in the most powerful way she could. The judge called for a short recess. In the hallway, away from the prying eyes, Lily collapsed into my arms, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered into my shoulder. "I'm sorry I had to show all that. I couldn't let him win. I couldn't let him make everyone believe his lies about you." I held her tight, my own tears falling into her hair, whispering that she had nothing to be sorry for, that she was the bravest person I had ever known. When we reconvened, the atmosphere had irrevocably shifted. David's lawyer seemed deflated, offering no further arguments. The judge delivered her ruling with a firm, resolute tone. She granted me full custody of Lily, the family home, and a significant portion of the assets, citing the clear and compelling evidence of a pattern of psychological abuse and parental alienation attempted by the petitioner. She praised Lily's courage, stating that her intervention had been crucial for the court to see the full picture. Walking out of the courthouse, the sunlight felt warmer, the air easier to breathe. The legal battle was over, but more importantly, the battle for our truth had been won. David was served with the papers a week later, and he moved out of the city shortly after. The shame of his public unmaking too great to bear in the community, where he had once held such sway. The first night in our house, just the two of us, felt different. It was quiet, but it was a peaceful quiet, no longer filled with the tension of walking on eggshells. Lily and I ordered pizza and ate it on the living room floor, laughing for the first time in what felt like years. We were free, not just from a bad marriage, but from a false narrative. We could finally begin to build a new life, one defined by our own terms, our own strength, and our unconditional love for each other. I used the settlement money to finally open that small art studio, just as I had always dreamed. I named it The Revealed Canvas, a tribute to the truth that had set us free. Lily helped me paint the walls, her laughter filling the space, banishing the last of the old ghosts. The studio became more than a business. It became a sanctuary for me, and a symbol of our fresh start, a place where beauty and honesty could flourish side by side. Lily blossomed in the new environment, her grades improving not out of fear, but out of a rediscovered passion for learning. She started a blog for teens dealing with parental divorce, using her experience to help others feel less alone. Her voice, once silenced by her father's criticism, was now powerful and compassionate, a beacon for others lost in similar storms. She had transformed her pain into purpose, and I had never been more proud. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that day in the courtroom. The shock, the fear, the overwhelming surge of emotion. I realize now that the video wasn't just evidence. It was Lily's love letter to me. It was her way of saying, "I see you. I see all you've done, all you've sacrificed, and I will not let it be erased." Her belief in me rebuilt my belief in myself, piece by piece. Our story is a testament to the fact that the quietest people in the room are often the strongest. It's a reminder that truth has a power that no amount of manipulation or money can ultimately silence. The challenges we faced didn't break us. They forged us into stronger, more resilient versions of ourselves, bound by a love that had been tested in fire and emerged unbreakable. The most inspiring message we learned, and the one we now carry forward, is that your voice is your power. Whether it's through spoken words, a paintbrush, or a secretly recorded video, telling your truth is an act of profound courage. It can shift the ground in a courtroom, it can shatter falsehoods, and it can ultimately set you free to build the life you were always meant to live, surrounded by those who truly see and value you.